All right, let's dive into a really wonderful story. We're talking about Kate DiCamillo's Flora and Ulysses. It's this fantastic tale about a 10-year-old girl who's a bit of a cynic, and believe it or not, one very, very special squirrel.
So this is our hero, Flora Buckman. And right off the bat, you can see she's a master multitasker. She's ignoring her mom and completely lost in her favorite comic book, The Illuminated Adventures of the Amazing Incandesto. Now, her mom calls her a natural-born cynic. And you know what? Flora's kind of okay with that. It fits. It feels right for a kid who'd much rather deal with comic book heroes than, well, real-life contracts.
And this right here, this is pretty much the central conflict in Flora's world. On one side, you've got Flora, total comic book fan. On the other, her mom, Phyllis, who's a romance novelist. And Phyllis actually makes Flora sign a contract promising to stop reading what she calls the idiotic hijinks of comics. Of course, for Flora, the real idiotic hijinks are the romance novels. So yeah, this contract is basically a war he's not planning on losing.
So picture this. Flora is just completely absorbed in her comic book world, when suddenly this insane noise just erupts. And we're not talking about a pow or bam from the comic. No, this is real. It's super loud and it's coming from the neighbor's yard. Just like that, her quiet afternoon is toast.
So she looks out the window, and what does she see? Her neighbor, Mrs. DiCamillo, battling a vacuum cleaner, like a giant, shiny, out-of-control vacuum. And it is not a fair fight. Mrs. DiCamillo is definitely losing. This thing, the Ulysses 2000X, is acting like it's got a mind of its own. As Flora might put it, it's a few bolts shy of a load.
And then her eyes lock onto something else. That rogue vacuum, it's literally tearing across the lawn, and it's heading straight for this little squirrel who is just, minding its own business, totally clueless about what's about to happen. Flora just starts banging on the window, shouting, even though the words themselves sound completely ridiculous.
But it's no use. The vacuum is on a mission, and it doesn't slow down. There's just this poof and a flump, and the squirrel is gone. Just like that. Sucked right into the Ulysses 2000X.
And this is the moment. This is where everything shifts. All Flora can say is, "Holy Bagumba." Now, that phrase, it's straight from her comic book. It's what the superhero's sidekick says when something absolutely mind-blowing happens. And for Flora, our natural-born cynic, this isn't just an expression. It's a signal. It's time to act. And she is out of that room in a flash.
Okay, so we're entering a new chapter here, a cynic's guide to life-saving. See, Flora may be a cynic, but that also means she's always prepared for the worst. And luckily for our squirrel, every single issue of her favorite comic has this bonus section called Terrible Things Can Happen to You. After what just went down, she's definitely going to need that advice.
So the squirrel is just lying there on the grass, not moving. A lot of his fur is gone. Now, the comic book guide doesn't have a section for squirrel CPR, but that doesn't stop Flora. Not for a second. She gets right down there, puts her mouth on the squirrel's, apparently it tastes kind of fuzzy and nutty, and she starts chest compressions, completely tuning out her freaked-out neighbor.
Now, let's flip the script for a second and think about what's happening from the squirrel's point of view. It's just nothing. Darkness. And then, bam! This incredible light just floods everything. As Flora is literally breathing life into him, his whole world is expanding. His brain feels bigger. Doors are opening up in his mind. He's not just waking up. He's being reborn. He's illuminated.
And the result is, well, it's instantaneous and completely unbelievable. Flora and Mrs. DiCamillo are just staring, jaws on the floor, because the squirrel, the same one that got sucked into a vacuum moments ago, is now standing up on his hind legs, holding that giant Ulysses 2000X over his head with one paw. Yeah, this is definitely not your average squirrel.
Right then, Mrs. DiCamillo's husband yells out, asking about the Ulysses, meaning the vacuum. But for Flora, hearing that name sends a shiver down her spine. It's perfect. The name of the very thing that almost destroyed him now becomes his name. He's not just a squirrel anymore, he is Ulysses. And just like that, a superhero gets his name.
And get this, Ulysses actually nods at her, like he understands, and Flora's cynical little heart just does a backflip. She has to immediately pull out her comic book mantra to calm down. Do not hope, instead observe, because hope, it can get in the way. It makes you sloppy. But man, for the first time in a long time, it's getting really, really hard for her not to hope.
So, next up, wholly unanticipated occurrences, because things are about to get even weirder. Flora manages to sneak Ulysses into the house completely unnoticed by her mom. After a super tense dinner, she finally crashes, with her new superhero squirrel sleeping at her feet. But in the middle of the night, Ulysses wakes up, and he's about to discover something even better than cheese puffs. He's about to discover words. The next morning, Flora's mom is not happy. She's mad about the mess, the cheese puffs everywhere, but mostly she's staring at the piece of paper in her typewriter. And typed out on that paper is this little poem. It's weird, it's wonderful, and it's from Ulysses. There's no denying it. The squirrel can type. I mean, wholly unanticipated occurrences, right?
All right, a new section. The arch nemesis is revealed. So while Flora is still trying to wrap her head around this typing squirrel miracle, her dad shows up. And Flora, remembering her comic book training, decides it's time to become a giant ear, to listen in and fight crime. So she hangs back on the stairs, Ulysses on her shoulder, and she just listens.
And what she hears is just chilling. It's her mother, Phyllis, calmly telling her father exactly what to do with the squirrel. A 3-step plan. Put him in a sack, hit him with a shovel, and then bury him. She actually says it's the humane thing to do. And in that one moment, everything clicks into place with this horrible clarity. Her mom isn't just a mom who writes romance novels. She's the villain. She's the arch nemesis.
So now we've got chaos at the Giant Donut. Flora's dad, who's now basically been forced into being a henchman, uses a classic stalling tactic. He suggests they stop for breakfast. So they end up at this place, the Giant Donut. Flora's desperately trying to keep Ulysses a secret, but then the waitress Rita, who has this absolutely massive hairdo, gets a little too close, a little too curious, and that's when things just completely explode.
Rita lets out a scream, Ulysses screeches right back at her, and then he just leaps right into that giant nest of hair. And it is absolute pandemonium. Rita's freaking out, swatting at her own head, people are yelling, and right in the middle of it all, Flora is shouting, "Ulysses, remember who you are." It's total, beautiful comic book chaos. It is finally incandesto time.
And you know what? He remembers. Just as a cook comes running out with a knife, Ulysses launches himself from Rita's hair. He goes soaring right over Flora's head, paws out in front of him like Superman. He's not just jumping, he's not falling,
Flora glances over at her dad, and the sad, defeated look is just gone. He's actually smiling, a real, genuine smile, watching this squirrel fly through a donut shop. And then, in the voice of Dolores, the parakeet from their favorite comic, he says it. Wholly unanticipated occurrences. He says the words she hasn't heard him say in forever. He's back. He remembers their world.
So after Flora manages to trip the cook, the one with the knife, her dad sees their opening. He yanks the door open and just yells, "Run." And they do. They scoop up Ulysses, who's been knocked out from the excitement, and they just bolt, with her dad laughing like a maniac the whole way to the car. It's a real getaway.
Once they're in the car, speeding away, Flora's worried. She thinks Ulysses might have a concussion. Her dad stops laughing right away, gets serious and says, "We won't let him die." And that's when Flora has to ask the big question about the shovel. Her dad looks right at her in the rearview mirror and he promises, and that's it. He's on their side now. He's officially switched teams.
And I want to leave you with this. Just before all the chaos, Mrs. Tickham had read a poem to Ulysses. And these lines, they just kind of hang in the air as Flora and her dad drive off. They're all about transformation, about becoming something bigger, something brighter. And really, isn't that what this whole story is about? It's a promise of what can happen when even a natural-born cynic decides to hope and discovers that something absolutely extraordinary was there all along, right in her own backyard.